Welcome to the Privacy Report. Today, we're talking about something that is, maybe one of the most reliable and frankly simplest security tools out there. It's a really low tech solution to some very high tech problems. We're talking about physical signal defense. We're going to unpack the physics of these devices and really explore how just surrounding your electronics with a conductive layer can become one of the most powerful moves you can make for your own digital security.
It's funny. It's a concept that's so elemental that I think a lot of people just overlook it. They're always looking for the next piece of software. But what we're talking about here are signal blocking enclosures. You've probably heard them called Faraday bags or, Faraday sleeves. And their function is just absolute. They create a physical barrier, a cage, really, that stops radio waves from getting in or out. And that instantly gives you this radical reduction in exposure to location tracking, to relay attacks, and even to some remote exploitation attempts.
That is the perfect setup. Before we dive into the physics of how this all works, just a reminder that you can subscribe to our email newsletter for more insights at theprivacyreport.net.
Okay, so to really get why you'd need a physical shield like this, you have to just look at our digital lives today. The problem is constant broadcasting. Your smartphone, your tablet, your laptop, even your car key fob and your credit cards. They're all just constantly emitting signals. They're leaking identifiers and data, sometimes on purpose, sometimes not. And that constant invisible chatter is the real risk we're trying to deal with here.
Okay, let's get into that. How does a simple bag, a simple pouch, actually silence a device it's designed from the ground up to scream its existence across tons of different frequencies?
It's just pure applied physics, electromagnetic physics. These tools use these very carefully designed conductive materials. It's often layers of fabric woven with metallic threads, and they form a complete shell. So when an electromagnetic wave, like a cell signal or a GPS ping, hits that conductive layer, the energy is absorbed. It's then redistributed all along the outside surface.
So it's not software, it's not some kind of encryption, it's a physical law. The radio wave just cannot get through that field.
Precisely. That field creates what we call an attenuation effect. It just stops everything: cellular, Wi-Fi, GPS, Bluetooth, even NFC signals. And this principle isn't, theoretical. It is grounded in standard electromagnetic theory.
Yeah.
And to give it some real technical weight, you can find detailed guidance on how effective these shields are from organizations like the U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST.
That's a really important point. We're not just trusting some random company's marketing claims. This is a physical defense mechanism, and its performance is actually validated by institutions that set national tech standards.
Exactly. The science is completely sound. And what's really fascinating to me is the cultural shift we're seeing. These sleeves have moved so quickly from being this niche hacker gear or a tool for law enforcement into an everyday privacy item.
Right.
And that shift really just shows how pervasive these network devices have become, and maybe more importantly, how widespread the vulnerabilities are now. We need these physical tools because the digital risks are, they're everywhere.
Let's detail some of those risks, because I think this is where it really hits home for people. This isn't just about spies and, high-level corporate espionage. This is about preventing neighborhood crime. I think the most common one right now is key fob relay theft.
Oh, absolutely. This is a perfect example of a physical vulnerability that's exploited entirely through radio waves. Your car's key fob is constantly sending out a weak signal. So criminals use these relay devices to capture that signal from your fob, even if it's inside your house, on the kitchen counter. And then they transmit it to a partner standing right next to your car. The car thinks the key is right there. It unlocks. And a lot of the time, it even lets them start the engine.
And this is not a what-if scenario. We have police departments all over the world telling people to use these products. The Police Service of Northern Ireland, for example, specifically recommends putting your key fobs in a signal-blocking pouch to stop this exact kind of theft.
But the privacy risks go so much deeper than just your car. Think about the constant threat of location tracking. Even if you go into your settings and turn off location services, your phone is still sending out identifiers through Bluetooth and Wi-Fi probes, constantly searching for networks it knows.
And that is so critical. Turning off that one switch, location services, it doesn't stop the passive leaking of those identifiers. And that's what allows advertisers and data brokers to track your movements with, frankly, scary accuracy. A physical shield is the only way to get true silence.
Then you get into the more complex and honestly more frightening scenarios, like over-the-air exploitation. So every wireless connection on your phone is managed by this complex piece of software called a radio stack.
Mm.
If those radio stacks have vulnerabilities, and they do, they could potentially be attacked remotely just because your Wi-Fi or Bluetooth is turned on.
So a physical disconnect, putting it in the bag, is the only way to immediately shut down that wireless attack path no matter what software patches you have or don't have.
It's an instant air gap. And one last point that often gets missed is what we call metadata harvesting.
Yeah.
We all assume that when a device is off, it's silent. But even during startup or shutdown, or if the battery is just really low, a device might briefly ping a network. A sleeve stops that completely.
That's a great point. It's a holistic defense.
And if you want the ultimate validation for this tech, you just have to look at who relies on it when the stakes are literally as high as they can get. Digital forensics teams.
Tell me more about that. So if an investigator is seizing a device, what are they trying to stop in those first few critical minutes?
They're trying to stop remote tampering. It's fascinating. When an investigator seizes the suspect's phone, the very first thing they do is put it in one of these enclosures. They have to isolate it from all networks immediately because they need to prevent a remote actor, maybe the owner, an accomplice, from trying to remotely wipe the device.
Wow, so the evidence could be deleted, just wiped from existence before they even get the phone back to the lab if it's not sealed right away?
Exactly. You look at any digital forensics guide, like in Forensic Magazine, and they'll stress this. Put the device in a Faraday container. It blocks everything, and that ensures the integrity of the evidence. When law enforcement is relying on a physical shield in a criminal case, that tells you everything you need to know about how well it works.
That kind of validation really puts this tech in a whole new category of trust. So, okay, for the listener who's now convinced, let's talk about the pitfalls. Because these things have gone mainstream, I'm sure not all of them are created equal.
Not even close. It really comes down to build quality and the material science. If you're going to rely on this, you have to look past the marketing. The first thing to evaluate is something called RF attenuation. That is the key metric. It's a rating measured in decibels or dB, and it tells you exactly how much signal power is being blocked.
Okay, so for our listener, what does a decibel rating actually mean in practice? What's a good number?
So in simple terms, every 10 dB is a 10-fold reduction in signal power. So a shield rated at, say, 60 dB reduces the signal power by a factor of 1,000,000.
A million. Wow. Okay, so what's the target range we should be looking for then?
You really want to aim for something above 60 to 80 dB. That's going to give you strong, reliable protection across the whole spectrum of signals. And you need that because modern signals, like 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi and some 5G bands, are just inherently harder to block than older, lower frequency stuff.
Right. So a cheap bag might stop an old cell signal, which is easy, but then completely fail against Bluetooth or modern Wi-Fi, which kind of defeats the whole purpose.
Exactly. You also have to look at the layer count. The good ones use multiple layers of this conductive fabric. If a bag feels really thin and flimsy, it's almost certainly cutting corners there.
And the seal itself seems like it would be the biggest point of failure. I mean, the best shielding material in the world is useless if there's a tiny gap for the signal to sneak through.
That's the weak link, every time. The closure type is absolutely vital. You want something that forms a really tight, reliable barrier, roll-top closures where you have to fold it over a few times, and high-quality magnetic closures tend to be much more reliable than, say, a simple hook and loop or Velcro closure, which can wear out and leave gaps.
And since we're talking about something you're probably going to toss in a pocket or a bag every single day, I guess durability has to be a major factor too.
Definitely. You want to look for reinforced or welded seams. And you also have to check the signal compatibility. Make sure the product explicitly says it's tested to block everything. Cellular, Wi-Fi, GPS, Bluetooth, and NFC. If it's vague, you should probably assume it only blocks the easy ones.
If you need some trusted examples, options like Silent Pocket are great for general consumer use. Then you have brands like Mission Darkness, which you see a lot in forensics, or Faraday Defense. But the main takeaway is you have to choose based on those verifiable specs, not just on price.
And since we're talking so much about build quality and durability, we have to talk about testing. You can't just buy a bag and assume it works forever.
Right, wear and tear is a real thing. You have to verify your own gear.
Yes. And it's actually really simple to do. First, seal your phone completely inside the container. Make sure no part of the phone is touching the seal area itself. Second, try to call it from another line. If it goes straight to voicemail, that's a good sign. Third, try to locate it using a service like Find My iPhone or Android's Find My Device. It should fail.
And don't forget those short-range connections, the ones that run on those higher frequencies that are harder to block.
That's the critical fourth step. Try to pair a Bluetooth device to it or do an NFC tap. If any of those tests succeed, If the call connects, if the location shows up, try resealing it very carefully. If it still connects, that shield is compromised. It's time to replace it.
Okay, before we wrap up, let's just quickly run through a few common questions or misconceptions we hear about these. The biggest one is probably about the battery. Does putting your phone in one of these drain the battery faster?
Not significantly, no, not for short periods. The phone does use a bit more power, searching for a signal that isn't there, but it's pretty minor, unless you're leaving it in there, powered on, for days at a time. It's not something most people need to worry about.
And a really vital distinction here, does this protect you from malware? If I seal my phone in a bag, does that remove spyware that's already on it?
No,
Hmm.
absolutely not. This is a network defense, not an antivirus. The sleeve blocks wireless attack vectors. It stops a remote operator from getting in or pulling data out. It does not remove malware that's already on your device.
What about emergency alerts? If I'm in a sensitive meeting, but there's a severe weather warning, will I miss it?
You will, yes.
Yeah.
All signals are blocked, including those critical emergency broadcasts. So if you rely on those, you need to take the device out of the enclosure.
And do you have to power the device off before you put it in?
It's not required. I mean, powering it off will save a little battery and make sure it's totally silent, but the shield's effectiveness is purely physical.
Yeah.
It works whether the device is on or off.
Okay, and lastly, the legality question. Is it legal to use these?
Completely legal. These are defensive tools. They're used all the time in journalism, activism, and of course, forensics. There are no laws against blocking signals on your own private devices.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? I think the takeaway here is that in a world where digital threats are invisible, they're constant, these physical tools provide this really necessary, tangible layer of defense. They force a moment of digital silence. They let you, the user, have absolute control over when and how your device talks to the world. It's really the purest form of an air gap solution.
And if we connect that idea to durability, it raises a really important question for anyone who uses this tech. Given how critical those attenuation ratings are, and how easily a tiny gap in the stitching or a worn-out seal can compromise the entire shield, how often should we really be testing our physical digital defenses? This isn't a buy-it-once-and-forget-it solution. It requires vigilance.
A great question to think about. Thank you for tuning in to the Privacy Report. Please remember to like and subscribe wherever you get your audio. This episode was made with the assistance of AI.